Penguin here, and today I'm going to do one of these tier videos. Finally I get to do a tier video. We're going to do the 10 new spells that were introduced in the 2024 Player's Handbook. I'm a bit late to the party, but I will give you my honest opinion about these spells and whether they're worth it for you to even take with your build. So let's go ahead and get started. The first spell that we're going to do is we're going to do Arcane Vigor. So Arcane Vigor, you tap into the life force to heal yourself, roll 1 or 2 of your unexpended hit dice, and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll's total plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Those dice are then expended. You can use a higher spell slot to spend more hit dice, essentially above level 2. This is a level 2 spell. It's cast as a bonus action. And, you know, this is like healing. This is giving a healing spell for a wizard, basically. But it does the same thing that a short rest would do, because you're still spending hit dice. So if I'm a wizard or sorcerer, I didn't come to the party to be the healer for the group. I'm not interested in this. I don't know who this spell is for. Like, I mean, I just don't understand. I'm sorry. I don't get it. I think it's a pass for me. There's no reason that I would need to take this. And it's a level 2 spell. There are much better spells at level 2 that I should be spending the spell slot on. I just don't think that is worth it. So that would be a pass, in my opinion. Next one we're going to do is Befuddlement. So Befuddlement, let me pull up my notes. Befuddlement is renamed from Enfeeblement. So it's not really a new spell, but it's an 8th level spell. And it reads, you blast the mind of a creature you can see within range. The target makes an intelligence saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes 10d12 psychic damage and can't cast spells or take the magic action. At the end of every 30 days, the target repeats the save, ending the effect on success. The effect can also be ended by Greater Restoration, Heal, or a Wish spell. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage only. This is pretty interesting. This is definitely something that's interesting here. So there are some creatures out there where at these sort of levels where this will be very useful against. It essentially keeps them from casting spells. And if they're not set up in a way to fix this condition, then it's going to turn what would be a very hard fight, could be, into a very easy fight if they can't counteract this. This is pretty big, and it's an intelligence save, and not everybody, unless you're fighting some sort of wizard or something like that, is going to have a really great ability, a way to save against intelligence. So this is definitely an interesting one. I think, therefore, that because it's so powerful, because it has the potential to essentially make super hard fights into suddenly super easy fights, then I'm going to put Befuddlement at powerful. And I think it is a good fit for a bard, druid, warlock, or wizard build. Definitely, I think like a wizard or something like that, or a warlock should look into that. And it's a good spell to have, I think. 8th level, though. There may be better spells that do more damage, but I feel like the benefits of potentially taking out magic use from somebody is a lot. Is potential for a lot. So, all right. Next spell we're going to look at is Elementalism. And that reads, you exert control over the elements, creating one of the following effects within range. And I'm not going to read the effects because it's very long. Beckon air, beckon earth, beckon fire, beckon water, or sculpt element. So, I mean, it's essentially like you can do these little sort of prestidigitation things with these little spells. It's a cantrip. It's for druids, sorcerers, and wizards. It's got it's one action. It's got a range of 30 feet. It's instantaneous. Man, I just really don't see why you would waste a cantrip spot on this spell. This is sort of nothing burger of a cantrip. I can't even think of a scenario where this would be useful. So it's super situational. And even if I could think of a scenario where this would be useful, I would suspect that there are many other and better ways to solve that situation, that scenario that I could think of. So I think this is a very hard pass for elementalism. I just don't. Cantrip spots are very minimal, and I really want to get the most of my cantrips, especially early on. Like, I don't know why anybody would ever waste a cantrip spot on that. But I mean, you do you, but I don't see that. I think that's a dumb spell. So next one we're going to talk about is Fount of Moonlight. And so that reads, a cool light wreaths your body for the duration, emitting bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light for an additional 20 feet. So you become your own torch, essentially. And that lasts 10 minutes. Until the spell ends, you have a resistance to radiant damage. And your melee attacks deal an extra 2d6 radiant damage on a hit. In addition, immediately after you take damage from a creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself, you can take a reaction to force the creature to make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature has the blinded condition until the end of your next turn. This is for bards and druids. And I think this is a very interesting spell. I think that there are some definite situations here. So it's a 4th level bard and druid spell. So you'll be 7th level before you have access to the spell. Casting time is 1 action, and it's only on self. A duration is 10 minutes, as I mentioned. It's a con saving throw for blinded. Now, unfortunately, that means most creatures you cast this against are going to have bonuses to their con saving throw. But if they fail, they get the blinded condition, which is one of the better conditions to put somebody under. And especially somebody that you're fighting immediately. And then even if they do hit you with their disadvantage, even if they do hit you, then they're likely to get damaged. So yeah, they're likely to get damaged again. So unless they make another con saving throw. So it's like they'll just be blinded again, right? So it's like they get punished for hitting you. I think this is super interesting. I do think this is situational, though. I think because it requires a certain build. It requires some kind of frontline bard or druid build to really, really get the most benefits out of this spell. But it's an interesting spell. It could be good. It could be good. I think it's more situational just because it's so very specific to a certain play style, in my opinion. But, again, that's my opinion. So let's talk about the next spell, shall we? And this is Jallarzi's Storm of Radiance. Okay. You unleash a storm of flashing light and raging thunder in a 10-foot radius, 40-foot high cylinder centered on a point you can see within range. While in this area, creatures have the blinded and deafened conditions. No save. And they can't cast spells with a verbal component. When the storm appears, each creature in it makes a con save, taking 2d10 radiant damage and 2d10 thunder damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. A creature also makes this save when it enters the spell's area for the first time on a turn or ends its turn here. A creature makes a save only once per turn. Okay, so that is interesting. So this is a 5th level spell. It costs 1 action to cast. Its duration is 1 minute. Its range is 120 feet. It's a 10-foot radius. So that's a 20-foot cylinder, a 20-foot circle in diameter, which if you're in a dungeon or something like that, that is a pretty large chunk of real estate, right? And it's a 5th level spell. Notice that I did not say that it required concentration, because it doesn't. There is no concentration requirement for the spell. You cast it and it lasts for a full minute. So right there, I think this spell is pretty good, because it's an area of effect spell that you can affect the battlefield without requiring a concentration. And the damage isn't really a thing. So it's 2d10 radiant and then thunder damage. And so, you know, and they're going to save. It's a con saving throw, so a lot of times they're going to save. But I think the real thing that it has going for it is the debuffs that have no save. You don't, if you are in this, you have no save. And then here's the thing. I think that this is a warlock or wizard spell. So this can be cast by a backline fighter. Okay. So I'm a wizard. I'm a backline fighter. If I have a barbarian in front who has a weapon with the push property, right? So I have a guy in front with the push property. This push mastery property allows you to launch a creature you hit 10 feet straight away from you without a save. In which case, they will go into this storm again, the storm of Radiance, and have to make another save and take more damage, and then have to move out of it to not be blinded or deafened. I mean, it's like you can really do some serious damage if you have, like, this synergizes really well with, you know, somebody with push weapon mastery weapon. This has some real potential to really control the battlefield, even though, you know, people are going to say the 20-foot diameter isn't that big, but that's pretty big when you're in a dungeon, you know, and you can't move it. It doesn't say you can move it, but it's like if you can position it right and have your players around this in such a way, I mean, you're forcing the other creatures to be in this, and they're going to be blinded. No save. So, I mean, man, if you put this in a choke point, oh my gosh, the damage that you can do, and they'll never hit you. So I think for this reason that this really is very powerful. I mean, this might be a must-have, but I'm just going to give it powerful. I'm going to give it powerful before Befuddlement. So it's going to be, because I think there's all sorts of situations here where you could really do some damage with the spell, especially if you have good synergy with it within the party. Then this will be like every combat you'll be pulling this maneuver, I think. So yeah. All right, so next spell that we're going to talk about is Power Word Fortify. You fortify up to 6 creatures you can see within range. The spell bestows 120 temporary hit points, which you divide among the spell's recipients. All right, pretty straightforward. It's 120 temp hit points. I think this is a very strong spell. And again, this is another spell. So 120 temporary hit points that you can do, and you can split it up however you want to 6 creatures. is a huge buff. This is a 7th level spell. It costs 1 action. It's a 60-foot range. It has a verbal component. It's instantaneous, however. So at 7th level, you're fighting some really tough creatures. They're doing massive damage at that point. But this will still keep you from going down for at least 2 rounds, maybe 3, which is huge in battles that usually last 3 to 5 rounds. So you're talking, you can keep somebody up for at least half the combat, probably, unless they're really being targeted, which is huge. And then, right, and you can sort of divide that up how you want amongst your party, right, depending on who's going down. So this is Bard and Cleric, by the way. And for Cleric, I think for the supporting role, it's excellent. Excellent. This is an excellent spell, right? I don't think there is a spell that grants this much of a hit point boost. I mean, this could double somebody's hit points, 120 points, right? So it's huge, right? But then you add to it the fact that you can actually synergize this, right? This is another one that you can synergize with Armor of Agathis, right? So if you have a paladin or a warlock a paladin of Oath of Conquest, by the way, so a particular paladin, but like, if you have a warlock or a paladin that can cast this spell, right? And their front line, they can, like their Armor of Agathis will never go down. And they can, ends early if you have no temporary hit points, but you can have 120 plus what the Armor of Agathis gives you. And then for every Armor of Agathis above 1st level that you cast, right, you get 5 more. It does 5 more cold damage and 5 more temporary hit points and 5 more cold damage. So every time, right, it's like every time they hit you, they could be taking, and at that high level, you're casting, this thing at maybe you can be casting this thing and they could be doing 30 points of damage, potentially 35 points of damage every time they hit you, right? Plus now you're super tank. You can just be hit a zillion times and you'll never go down, and you let the whole thing aggro on you. This is a very, very powerful spell. And so I'm going to say that for that reason, right, that this spell for a cleric is a must have. If you're a cleric, I don't understand why you wouldn't get this spell. I would absolutely get this spell. 100% every time. So let's move on. And now we're going to talk about Sorcerous Burst. There we go. Sorcerous Burst. You cast Sorcerous Energy at 1 creature or object within range. Make a ranged spell attack against that creature. On a hit, the target takes 1d8 of damage. You choose the type: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, psychic, or thunder. If you roll an 8 on a d8 for the spell, you can roll another d8 and add it to the damage total. So potentially doing 16 points of damage total. When you cast a spell, the maximum number of these d8s you can add to the spell's damage equals your spellcasting ability modifier. You can increase this. So at 5th level, it goes to 2d8, and at 11th level, it goes to 3d8. However, if you roll an 8 for the spell, you can roll another d8. So I would assume, it doesn't say specifically, but I would assume here that say you upcast this at 4th level, right? So you upcast this, or no, you upcast this at, you upcast this at 4th level. Oh, no, so you'd have to be 5th level to upcast it. So you upcast this at 5th level at 2d8, right? And then you roll 2 8s. I assume you get to roll 2 additional 8s and another dice for each 8. So it potentially can do some pretty good damage. It's actually not bad. And for a cantrip that's 1 action, an instantaneous in a range of 120 feet, which is really great range. And you get to pick the damage type. You get to choose that. And Sorcerous Burst, which is available for sorcerers only, right? I would say that Sorcerous Burst is very powerful. That, yeah, for a cantrip, you could do a lot worse than choosing this for a cantrip. I think this is a super great cantrip to choose if you want, you know, when you're picking your cantrips, especially at low levels, because it has some potential to one-shot some creatures. You know, if you get some lucky dice rolls, you could end up one-shotting some creatures at, you know, first and second level. Pretty amazing. So definitely worth it. All right. So the next one we're going to talk about is Starry Wisp. So you launch a mote of light at one creature or object within range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d8 radiant damage. And until the end of the next turn, it emits dim light in a 10-foot radius and cannot benefit from the invisibility condition. Okay. So it's for Bard and Druid. It's another cantrip. It's one action. It's instantaneous. Range is 60 feet. So unlike the Sorcerer's Burst earlier, this is not nearly as good. The only kind of cool thing it does is they can't benefit from the invisible condition. At low levels, though, which is where the only time this spell would be kind of remotely useful, at some of the lower levels, you're not going to run into a lot of invisible creatures in the first place. So, it's for Bard and Druid. This is very situational. I'm going to say this is depending on your build. It's not a terrible cantrip, but I think there are better things to get with your cantrip slots. But if you can't find something that you like, then this is not a terrible choice depending on your playstyle and how you want to play your character. So there you go. All right, so the next one I have is Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron. It's a 6th level spell. It is for Warlock and Wizard. Let's read it. You conjure a clawfoot cauldron filled with bubbling liquid. Interesting that it's a particular cauldron, like the specified clawfoot cauldron. Okay. The cauldron appears in an unoccupied space on the ground within 5 feet of you and lasts for the duration. The cauldron cannot be moved and disappears when the spell ends, along with the bubbling liquid inside of it. The liquid in the cauldron duplicates the properties of a common or uncommon potion of your choice, such as a potion of healing. As a bonus action, you or an ally can reach into the cauldron and withdraw one kind of that potion. The potion is contained in a vial that disappears when the potion is consumed. The cauldron can produce a number of these potions equal to your spellcasting ability, modifier minimum 1. When the last of these potions is withdrawn from the cauldron disappears and the spell ends. The potions obtained from the cauldron that aren't consumed disappear when you cast this spell again. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. This is the spell you should take if you want your wizard or warlock to do some of the healing for the party. Because here you go. You can potentially make a lot of these spells depending on your equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. So if your spellcasting ability modifier is 4, you have the potential to every night produce 4 greater healing spells, healing potions. That is huge. That is huge. All right. It's so huge. Every long rest, it's like I just gave us 4 greater healing potions. And it's not just healing potions, it's any uncommon or common potion. Of course, that'll be the one that's most used, right? But like, look at all the potions here. So I have Oil of Slipperiness, Filter of Love, Potion of Animal Friendship, Potion of Climbing, Potion of Fire Breath, Potion of Greater Healing, which we already said, which is going to be the most common, Potion of Growth, Potion of Hill Giant Strength. I can definitely see you doing that. So if you know if you're going to do a long rest and you know you're going in a particular situation, you can craft the potion to your situation. Man, that is super powerful. That is just a crazy power to be able to just not have to worry about potions when you're walking around these dungeons. I think this is, I mean, I was debating whether this should be powerful or must have, but I think this has to be a must have. I mean, this is potential to make everything better, and you don't really have to worry about potions except for the rare, anything above uncommon. But otherwise, you don't. And it's just to be able to have 4 of those or any time or whatever your spell, your spell modifier is. Like, that's crazy. So that's just crazy. But I mean, for me, that's a must have. 5th level spell, I think that's an easy no-brainer. All right. So the last one that we're going to talk about is Yolande's Regal Presence. You surround yourself with unearthly majesty in a 10-foot emanation. Whenever the emanation enters the space of a creature you can see, and whenever a creature you can see enters the emanation or ends its turn there, you can force that creature to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes 46 psychic damage and has the prone condition, and you can push it up to 10 feet away. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage only. A creature makes this save only once per turn. Okay, so this is a 5th level spell. It's for Bard, Wizard, and Paladin, Oath of Glory. And this is Spirit Guardian for Bards and Wizards and Paladin, that one Paladin, right? This is a sort of weaker Spirit Guardian, but I would argue that even though it's a little bit weaker, the radius isn't as much, right? It's a 10-foot radius. Well, actually, it's just 10 foot. It doesn't say, so I'm going to assume it's actually a 10-foot diameter around you. So it's a 5-foot radius around you, because it does not say. It just says self 10 foot. So we don't actually know if it's the radius but I would rule that that 10 foot would be talking about diameter. So it's a 10-foot circle around you. So you have to be pretty close. You have to be almost within melee range for this to hit. But here's what redeems it, right? Is its condition that on a failed save, wisdom save, which most creatures, frankly, are not going to have good wisdom modifiers, and so they're more likely to fail their save. They're going to be knocked prone. Okay? So that's really great. If you are, especially if you're a Paladin, Oath of Glory, I would say every fight you cast this. This would be your go-to cast. Like at the start of every battle, I would cast this. It lasts 1 minute. So it's going to last 10 rounds, right? It's not concentration, which I'm not sure. So it's not concentration. It's a poor man. I get it. It's a poor man Spirit Guardian, but it's a really great, that prone condition, and it has a small area effect, but that prone condition really does make it. So I think, again, this is a must-have. So here you go. Here's the layout. So I think, yeah, any of these top 6, I think you would be good to do. The Fount of Moonlight or the Starry Wisp, I think, are very situational. And you can just pass on Arcane Vigor and Elementalism. So just pass on those. But anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you agree with my assessments here. If you don't, be sure to let me know. My light just went out, but be sure to let me know in the comments below. And let's talk about it, because I'm really interested. I could change my mind. This is just my personal opinion after reading these spells through and doing some research on the internet. But I could be convinced otherwise, but you'd have to make a good argument. So let me know in the comments below your thoughts on my rankings and where you would place these spells. Thank you very much, and like and subscribe, and I hope to see you later. All right. Bye. May all your rolls be nat 20s.